Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make meatballs and onions and gravy over mashed potatoes. So everything you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this, and I gotta tell you, I prefer making the meatballs from scratch. It's just something I've always done. My grandmother was Italian. She taught me to make meatballs, but this is a quick version of making meatballs. So this just kind of works for me because I've had those kind out of the bag. I've seen other people who make those frozen bag kind of meatballs and stuff, and there's something about that taste. And yes, I have used them in a video myself. I will be using them again in a video probably, but I would prefer the actual made fresh from scratch on my counter because those frozen ones just kind of have a frozen taste to them. So what we're going to do, we're going to start out with a pound of ground beef, and to this we're adding a half a teaspoon of paprika, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And to this we're adding a fourth of a cup of Italian breadcrumbs. And then we're going to take the equivalent of, I don't know, 3/4 of a cup of broken up roll, which you can use like an old roll or old bread that you have. You just basically want about 3/4 of a cup, and we're going to break this up into smaller pieces into the bowl with everything else. And then we're going to add a large egg to it. And once we get the egg in, we're just going to mix this up. Now, you can actually put a glove on to do this. You can wash your hands and then do it. And then when you're done, wash your hands again. But I don't know, everybody I've ever known doing this, they do it by hand, just putting your hand in there, and it's not going to hurt anything. So this is the way I prefer to do it. So go ahead and mix this until everything is really incorporated, mixed together, and pulled in, and the bread and everything is pulled into the beef. And then we're going to roll out these meatballs. Now, we are making anywhere from 15 to 16 medium meatballs, depending on how big you make them. We don't want them huge. We just kind of go medium with this and just roll them up until they're a firm ball and you're ready to use them. And when we get these done, we're going to actually put them into a pan and cook them. So just go ahead and roll them up. It's very easy to push these together as you're rolling them. I only use one egg in this. I know you could use two of them and it would probably hold together a little better, but it also becomes wet and soggy and I don't like that. So one was enough. And we're going to go ahead and just roll these up until you get like maybe 15, 16 of them. And we're going to have them on a platter ready to go. And as you can see, this is not a hard process. Just rolling them up, nothing to it. It's so easy to do. And like I said, they taste so much better than the stuff that you get frozen. So once we get these all on our plate, we're going to move on to the next step. Now, you're going to need some oil and a large pan to cook these in, so just make sure you have them to the side. And we're going to cut up an onion and have it ready ahead of time. Now, this is like a medium onion, and I'm just cutting it around to where it's going straight through because I want rings here. I just want to break these up, keep all the rings, so that way they're pretty much ready to go and easily cooked. Now, if you're trying to break up the small ones, they will break on you, but just go ahead and break them up into pieces so that way they're ready ahead of time before we need this in the pan. Now, medium-high heat, large pan with your oil in here. I would say anywhere from like maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons of oil will do you. And then just put these in and we're going to cook these until all the sides are brown. Now this could take 12 to 15 minutes or whatever, but what you're going to do is you're going to cook these and roll them around. Once the bottom gets brown, flip it to a side that isn't brown until you get to a point where they've all browned completely all around the sides and everything like that, and then you'll know they're done. So just keep flipping them around. You can do this with a spoon really easily. You can use a spatula if you want to. It's really your choice of what you want to use, but you just want to make sure that you keep rotating them and make sure that they brown on each side, but not over brown on one, because if you leave them too long, they will burn on the bottom. So just make sure you flip them. And then once they're all cooked through, we're going to remove them from the pan and set them to the side, because then we can bring the onions into this. So just go ahead and bring them out, leave as much of that oil in there as you possibly can. And then once they're all out, we bring in all of those pieces of onion. Now, when the onion hits the pan, we're going to let this cook for at least 5 minutes because we really want this to soften up and become translucent. So just make sure that you leave them in there long enough to where they're not hard, and we don't want hard things ending up in the gravy. So keep removing these until you get them all out. And then we'll move on to the next step. Now, the good thing about doing everything the way we're doing it is we're cooking this all pretty much in one pan here. We're going to cook one thing, remove it, cook something else, remove it, make the gravy in the pan, and then add everything back. So that's the best thing about it. So we're still at medium-high heat. We want to keep it that way, and we're going to add in those onions and start them cooking. And like I said, you just want to make sure that they get translucent and soft before you remove them. There's enough oil in there to cook these, and like I said, probably 5 minutes will do. Use a slotted spoon to get them out so that way the oil will drip through so you don't take a lot with you. And then we're going to move on to the next bit. The best thing with this is, you're taking the flavor of a lot of things and leaving it in that oil as we're doing this, so it's actually kind of cool. Now add a little bit more oil to this. I'm going to say probably about like 2 tablespoons, maybe 3 more, so that way we can work with what we got here. And then we're going to add anywhere from like 3 to 4 tablespoons of just all-purpose flour to this, and we're going to mix it up in here and let it cook for about 2 minutes, because the whole point of this is to cook out a little bit of the flavor of what flour tastes like. And if you add a little bit more oil to it along the way, if you need to, if it's dry or whatever, just add like another tablespoon, and that will help you along your way. Now once this is cooked for a couple of minutes, then we're going to start adding some beef broth into this, kind of break it up a little bit and actually start making our gravy. But we want to give it time for it to cook out that taste. Now I have about 1.5 cups of beef broth here. I'm not adding it all at once. I'm going to put maybe like 1/2 cup in there and then start mixing it through to break up what's in the pan, and if there are any lumps or anything, start to break them up, because you really want to just work it around in there until everything is really kind of silky and you don't have lumps and it starts to work together to make your gravy. So this is going to take a few minutes, but again, you're on medium-high heat, and just keep stirring it as you go until you get all of that in there. And then you're going to stir it to a point where you can actually see if you feel it starting to thicken, because you will feel that in the bottom of the pan. The consistency will change and you will notice that it is thickening up. So keep doing this until you break up all of those lumps. And we are going to add some seasoning to this. So coming up, we are going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. And we want to just add that in there and then stir it in, so that way it mixes in with the gravy and cooks along with. So that's going to give you some flavoring right there in itself. And once this starts to thicken up and we get it to a point where we think it's thick enough, we're going to bring the onions and the meatballs back into it again. So keep stirring it, keep going. It's going to take a couple minutes, and then you're going to notice in the bottom of that pan you're going to feel some resistance, and that means you're thickening. So the important thing about this is you keep stirring as you go, just to make sure that everything works together here and you don't actually scorch the bottom of anything. And we are thickened at this point, so this means you are at a point where you can bring in the meatballs and the onions. Now when you get them back in there, they've been sitting to the side for a second, so we want to give them a couple minutes to warm back up again. So stir them into the gravy and let them heat up. And then after this, you are pretty much done and ready to serve this, except for the fact you need some mashed potatoes. So you're going to have to fix some to the side. Now some people will just open up a box and make mashed potatoes. That's good. Doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you've already cooked all the rest of this. If you want it out of the box, you go for it. But you can actually make real mashed potatoes if you want with this. And this is a cool thing, because I've done a video before on this, and I can leave a link below in the directions for this and everything, just to let you go and try that if you want to make it from scratch, because it's really not that hard to make mashed potatoes from scratch. Not a big deal, but some people don't know how. So if you want to go to the video, I'll leave you the link below. Otherwise, this is what we're going to start out with right here. This is on our plate. We have our mashed potatoes, and we are bringing in the stuff to put on top of the gravy, the onions, the meatballs, just loading it on top. And you can put as much or as little as you want. I suggest adding a little bit extra gravy to it just to give it a great flavor, and it will look something like this. And I gotta tell you, this is amazing to eat. It's something I think you're really gonna like. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.